Yep, it's your boy Cook. You know exactly what it is, the More Muse podcast. I'm here today with a very, very special guest. We're going to celebrate Women's History Month. I'm here with let's say a mentor of mine in the sports media space, the host of the Locked On ACC podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, a former UNC swim team champion, and also the lead producer for Under Armour, Candace Cooper. How you doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks so much for
I'm
having me,
good.
James.
No doubt, no doubt. Thank you for giving me your time. I know you're busy, so I know you got a lot going on.
I
So
love to give time for people who deserve, so
for
I'm
sure,
glad to be
appreciate that.
here.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. So let's go ahead and get started. You obviously from Raleigh, um, and you are the very first woman to participate on a varsity swim team at UNC-Chapel Hill. Now a lot of people know that now. I don't think people knew that before, but I want to ask you: is that a big deal to you?
Being the first Black woman to swim at UNC certainly was not something I ever thought would be my narrative or my story, but it is a bullet point that I personally don't love to share, but my friends love to share it for me. So it's one of those things where, why feel the need to brag on myself when I got friends who do it and all the things. So it's not really something that I'm like, oh my gosh, do you guys know? But it's also something that I'm not going to shy away from, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah, I understand that. Is there a reason, why you don't kind of, because, the average person will brag about it. So I
Yeah.
guess why don't you?
I guess it's just not my personality to really
Mm,
be a brag person. Also because it's really just it's a very interest like it's a fact that it's not something that I would want to boast considering it was 2012,
right.
2008, 2012 when I was, the Black woman swimming on the swim team, and to be a Black history fact all the way in 2008 is like, damn, we've
Yeah.
been swimming for a long time, right? The doors have been open and opportunities have been given to people. And it's like, what made UNC take so long? And, there's a myriad of reasons. And also my experience at Carolina is one where I almost feel like my boy Capel here, where he's like, it's mixed feelings, right?
Yeah, I get it.
So all family is complicated. It has its things. So it's not something that I'm running to share. But at the same time, as you get older, you grow and you realize why you needed those experiences, right, to go about your way, and it made and changed and made you the person that you are. So I think, it's just one of those situations where it's just not in my nature to be like super, hey, read my resume. But if you need
Right.
to know, Google is not hard to find.
Right, right. So, I mean, the way I think of it, I mean, in a sense, you kind of at UNC as a program for the swim team, you broke a color barrier at the way I think of it.
Mhm.
So, as far as that involvement and that inclusivity that they have or lack thereof, do you think that has changed now as far as the swim athletics go?
No, I mean, yes, it has changed because there have been other African Americans on the team. There was, an African American male. Well, he's Jamaican. He was on the team when I was there. So I think that there has been opportunities for, people who look like me to swim there. I think they can still do a better job in terms of representation. But I think it's a sport issue. It's a USA swimming sport issue to have
Mm.
lack of diversity, right? We're still talking about the first Black woman to get gold at an Olympics, and that was in 2020. So it's really just one of those or 2016. It's just one of those situations where it's like it's still very much not a point of concern for
Mm.
USA Swimming, or they're doing their part. They need to do more. As someone who sits on the DEI council for USA Swimming, I would say at least there's things like that in nature. I just wish that, we could progress a little faster.
Yeah, I get that. So, do you still work with the team as far as helping diversity?
I don't help the swim team in terms of diversity, but I do their PA for their swim meets. So
Okay.
in terms of like announce, it's kind of like basketball, right? You have someone who announces the players, you announce, the different timeouts, things that are going on, blah blah blah. So I do that for swimming purposes.
Okay, I love that. So,
Mm-hmm.
as far as swimming itself in the sport, it's the population of Black people, what, 2%, correct?
If that.
So yeah, somewhere around there. So, as far, how can we get swimming to stop being such a stereotype in our community and be involved in that for our kids, as they grow up?
So my family and I started the National Black Heritage Swim Championship meet. It'll be 18 years in 2024. We took a little pause because of COVID, but we've been, providing opportunities for Black kids just to be at a predominantly Black meet where they see themselves, they see fast swimming, they see opportunity before them. They see kids that at the very remedial level, they see kids that are going to college for swimming. And so we've opened those doors and had those opportunities, but that's one meet, in the year. We have the Black History meet in DC that they have once a year, but it really is a need for year-round swimming and opportunities at the really bigger levels to make people realize that they do have swimmers of that magnitude, but also just at the lower levels, the fundamental levels, giving swim lessons year round, providing them and having us participate at an affordable cost. I think that's a huge thing. Sports are expensive, period. Swimming is an even more expensive sport. I also think just access and education. A lot of people have generational reasons why they don't swim, or they tell you that Black people don't swim. And it really is, disappointing, because swimming really has a lot to do with Black history, and Black people swam long before they were ever told that they couldn't or should be scared of. Like, there's a lot of historical references to Black people swimming. I mean, you talk back to like ship times, you know what I'm saying? So like Black people have been able to swim. They had their own things back in Africa days. Like, there's been this whole thing. And if you just do research and really learn for yourself, it really, shows you how, if you're taught something, if you're told something, how that can be ingrained in you to not want to go that route. But, even if you look at the United States, there were pools that were bleached, or, they had shut down. They literally filled them so Black people couldn't have access to them. So it's just one of those situations where I think if people knew why they don't do certain things, and really like the almost racial undertones as to exposure, they would be more receptive to try and fight for opportunities and get our kids exposed to those sorts of sports.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I was listening to B-Dot last month back in February, and he was doing his podcast. I didn't know, maybe you didn't either. And he was talking about how we basically let other races determine the stereotypes for us, when it's like fried chicken and watermelon, when that was how we made our living back in the day. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I just kind of correlate the two, because it's like, we need to stay true to our roots. And obviously this is something that we should invest in. And I mean, in a sense, I hate to say the words take over, but we can. And that's just if, we just change our thinking. And I tell people all the time, ignorance is not bliss. Yeah. It is not cool to be ignorant. Like, you shouldn't walk around here being ignorant just for no reason. Like,
I mean, if you look at sports like,
oh no,
Lord, not my pictures falling. Everybody's upset today. If you look at like gymnastics, right? Simone Biles and just the exposure she's brought to those sports. If you look at tennis and Coco, and you look at everything that we have now, and the more girls are getting praised for being a part of this new gen, this turning the page of sports that aren't necessarily historically about us, but now we can really just be more proud and really highlight. If you look at Fisk University, they have a whole all Black women's gymnastics team. Like, you talk about Howard, how they're the only HBCU that has a swim team. And so it's just stuff like that, getting more exposure from a media standpoint. So us kind of doing our jobs and getting that knowledge out there is important.
Absolutely. Said a word. Amen to that. So let's get into the media side. Sure. Now, you started working in sports media. And how did that come about? Because you majored in African American studies. So where did the transition of media come from?
Yeah, so I think African American studies is really just me learning about my people, and like learning things like this, learning about how we were not exposed to swimming. And my senior thesis was about the plight of the Black athlete, and kind of how we weren't exposed or given opportunities, or maybe speak up for ourselves and things like that. And so I always thought I would be into teaching or speaking, or in comms in some sort of capacity. I had been working, thought I was going to be a kindergarten teacher, maybe, who knows? Like, I had so many things out there for myself. When I stopped training when I retired from swimming in 2016 after Olympic trials, I was just kind of in a lost space, trying anything that would stick, pretty much. Went to an event with my friend Ema Timu, rest in peace. She had me meet Kevin McClendon, who we all know as K-Mac from the Sports Shop. And I pretty much just opened my big mouth and convinced him that I just need a shot. Like, just give me a day to talk my head off, to talk about, life and sports and all the things and see how it goes. And he gave me a 3-hour slot once a week, him and Earl
Wow.
Reese. And that really was the catalyst for what you see now in terms of sports radio media space.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. And I mean, honestly, and I'm not just saying this, I feel like you're one of the best, especially in the, I know you don't live around here anymore, but especially in this area, like you're probably one of the best voices to listen to as far as like, just collegiate sports and ACC, women's athletics, stuff like that. I listen to you because at the end of the day, you lived it. You walked that walk. And I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of people you can't listen to because they just talk outside their neck and don't really know what they're talking about. So
Yeah.
I like that. So the Locked On Network, how did that opportunity come in your lap?
Great question. So pandemic happened. I had my first full-time gig in Houston, Texas. And I was like, all right, sports radio is really taking off, going on the national stage. And then of course, 90 days into my dream job, the thing called a pandemic happened and the world stopped. And there was no need for sports radio. There was no sports and all the things. So I got furloughed and let go. So I was literally just having like 15-minute LinkedIn style interviews with people and just like throwing things out there. And saw an ad from Locked On Podcast Network, like, hey, we're looking for college channel hosts to talk about, these respective schools. And I saw UNC on the list and I was like, oh, well, I mean, I know how to talk about UNC. Whoop,
Right.
there it is, So I was actually teaching swim lessons, had an interview, missed my interview with David Locke because I was in the middle of a lesson, called him back. He so graciously offered me an opportunity despite the fact that I missed my interview. And the rest is really history. I was doing Locked On Tar Heels for about a year and I graduated to the whole entire conference, which you call it a graduation, but it really is just more work. And it's fine because it really just keeps me excited about, the entire league. And I think it's really fun to follow some of these guys and girls who end up taking their dreams to the next level, or especially with NIL deals now. It's pretty cool just to see them kind of use their brains or their beyond just, what they do on the courts is how they market themselves and, talking about different coaches and following those tracks. So it's been really fun for me to, honestly enhance my skills in that capacity.
Yeah, I like that. So as far as marketing yourself, how do you market yourself, whether that's where you're playing a sport or in the media?
It's a great question, James. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. Still trying to learn how to put myself out there. I'm honestly, a very shy person. I am, fun fact, very much an introvert. Like when I have to be on, I can be on and I can make it work. I can work a room. I can do all the things. But when I am off, I am like turtle in my shell, like, watching my movies, watching my Netflix and just don't bother. Right. Yeah. So I think marketing myself is really just growing in confidence, growing in, listening to my voice. I remember in CIAA tournament this past year, I got on the mic, I started hearing myself. I was like, oh God. I was like, get out of that. Next, like get the confidence back. Come on. Well, we don't have time. So it's like growing in body changes, going from being a, Olympic trial athlete to being someone who can work out 3 days a week and think that's heroic. So, it's just like those things changing. And it really just, when you meet certain people, like I don't have to have 30,000 followers, but if I know the right 5 people who can make some things shake, people can ask all day long, how do you have this op? And it's like, you ain't gotta worry about that. Like I put myself in the right rooms. I just greet myself. And I think, how you treat people, how you speak to people, how you just like make sure those connections are genuine really does open those opportunities.
I like that because I can relate to that. I mean, I've been in this almost 2.5 years now. So I think my biggest issue in the beginning was I didn't like my voice. And I mean, I'm country, so I'm like, I don't like hearing that.
Okay, exactly.
And if I don't like it, I'm like, I don't think nobody else will. So, and then on top of that, it's just like having that confidence to really know that you know what you're talking about. I think that was everything, and I'm growing that gradually. I still need to market myself a little bit better, but it's like, I'm learning, and it's still the beginning stages. So I appreciate that advice, and I asked that for me.
You're good. Listen, I know how to put on my best Courtney white girl voice where you can hear it in the radio. And I also know how to be country as hell. So it's like, it
Yeah.
really just depends on the audience. You know, my family is very country when we're together. Again, that reclusive introvert. And my mom has really pushed me to be like, all right, when you're in a room, you better know how to work it. And you better ask, what's the weather in 10 languages? You got to know how to, speak to people who are come from different walks of life, but also be your authentic self, right? I think if you listen to my show anytime, when I get mad, it's gonna get real hot, fast, and southern real quick. You know what I'm saying? Like it's gonna get real spicy real quick. So I think it's just being yourself. I think that's what people take away from anything that you do. If you're your true self and people can hear that. So many times people are like, I just can't believe that's really you in real life. I'm like, well, what did I need to change for? You know what I mean? Like these are my real takes. This is my real feelings. And like good, bad, or indifferent. Like that's just who I am.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think people in the media put on a show. And I kind of blame Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless for that sometimes. As much as I love Stephen A. Smith's work, it's like, okay, you're a little dramatic and they think everybody's supposed to be like that.
Yeah.
And that's not realistic. That's not
100%. I also think like, you don't have to necessarily be a pro athlete to know the game. It helps, of course, but I think if you do your homework, you gotta look at Mina Kimes. She is so dope. She knows her ish. Like you cannot tell her she don't know her X's and O's. Like I'm not going to tell you like, okay, this play should have been ran like this and they should have done this scheme, but I can tell you with my eye test, the boy has slow feet, like I can do those sorts of things. And like eye tests don't lie, of course I have my co-host Kenton Gibbs who did play football, who can be like, oh well, he was actually supposed to run this play. I'm like, okay, great, whatever. But at the end of the day, I think you just got to be yourself.
Absolutely, I like that. And the eye test does not lie.
Does not lie.
Men lie, women lie, and numbers lie, but the eyes won't lie.
And you do not have to scream to get your point across. I think that's the biggest thing. Like you don't have to yell, you don't have to be theatrical. Like if people really enjoy your content, it'll show for itself. I think if you try to be anybody else, that will show faster than if you're just automatically yourself.
No doubt. Now, I love how you empower other women in the space, how you empower other Black people in general in the space. Can you talk about how that fiery passion to motivate and advise others, like myself, to, keep pushing in this industry, this white industry, I should say. I'm just be honest.
Yeah, I think that like I just have always told God, like, I just want to be in a place, like, enlarge my territory so I can help others. Like, that's really all I want to ever get big for. Like, I want to be able to bring the people that I've been in the mud with to my next. Like, I just really want to help however many people I can. And sometimes I feel like I'm still not doing enough because it's like, okay, all I did was an introduction. But however people use that introduction and take off, I think that's on them. And I've had to make peace with, like, you can't help everybody, but however you can just open doors or show people ways or give people 45 minutes of your time. I think that, makes a little bit of difference, but it's important to me because I think so many times there's been gatekeeping on other sides and other people that it's like, okay, well, we should gatekeep too. We should figure out how to get our tails in this building and show our creativity. I think there's so many people that have untapped potential just because they did not have an opportunity. And I hate that. I think there's so many people that are so creative and so talented that just needed access. They just needed to be in the room. And once they were there, you couldn't forget them. So I'm hoping that is something that I can do and keep doing for people as I grow myself.
Absolutely. I love that. And as far as creativity goes, you're now the lead producer at Under Armour. Can you talk about how that, that transition happened after 10 years of being in media?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking me what do I do, because honestly, if I could tell you, I don't know. Like it's everything, right? So I really appreciate you. Like, so what is a producer? Okay, immediately triggered. Immediately. I think with production, it's just using my business brain, right? It's using my operations brain. I did get a master's in management from Wake Forest School of Business, so it's like, all right, when the pandemic happened, I had to figure out another arm of my skill set and say, okay, you want to put money on the table? We're gonna have to figure out how to do some things. So if you're not talent, how can you be behind the scenes? And not necessarily having that talent dream die, but it's something that like bills got to be paid. And so with production, it's really been one of those bills got to be paid scenarios, while also being able to meet a lot of creatives and talented people along the way. So I think that the transition has been nice. It's definitely something that I know will probably be on the front of my mind as I get older, start having a family and doing certain things. I know that bag will be there. But right now I'm just enjoying a little bit of both.
Yeah, I like that. So I mean, I think it's very unique because at the end of the day, you were an athlete, a college athlete. So you know how to relate and you know what things they do like, you know what can make certain you basically know how to produce a good product because you were an athlete. Is it difficult for you to work with other athletes?
I think that working with athletes definitely really depends on their management team. Sometimes it's not even the athlete itself, it's having to reach out to three different or two different or one person who makes it more challenging than the actual athlete themselves. There are some people that you're like, if I didn't have to work with them, I certainly wouldn't. But especially at the collegiate level, it's been enjoyable because these kids are still hungry. They're still excited about, having a camera in their face or somebody even wanting to come film them and tell their story. So I think storytelling, especially from a Black landscape, has always been very important to me because so many of our stories don't get told, and so much of our greatness is untapped because nobody is there to tell our story. So I think it's been nice, especially because most of your top athletes are, African American, and it's just been really a cool experience to be able to share their narratives and from honestly their point of view.
I like that. I like that. So my last question for you, Candace, is what makes Candace Candace?
The 252. No, I'm just playing.
In your bloods, in your blood.
Okay, having my family from Kinston, North Carolina, there's something different in that water. I think just the mentality, the hunger, like as much as I've been blessed with opportunity. My family has been blessed to put me in situations to grow, to go to certain schools, be able to go to private school growing up, to go to a place like North Carolina and Wake Forest. I think that I am forever blessed and also forever called to be a blessing to others. And so I think that's been the biggest part of who I am, but it really is getting this ish out the mud. Like I had a conversation with somebody, told them I should be on a show, and my life has been forever changed because of that. But it was me putting my neck out, sticking up for myself, having confidence of myself to say I'm worthy of an opportunity and not waiting for somebody to give it to me. And that's what I really try and charge to other people. And it's not in a vain way. It's not in a like, oh, I know I'm the ish, I'm walking around like that. It's just, I don't got to tell you,
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
the right people know. And I don't need, if I walk away from here and nobody else feels like, oh, Candace did anything, it's like, all right, the right people know. Like my family knows, people who I love and respect know who I am as a person, and I don't have to convince anybody else. So I think that's really what makes me at this stage of my life, and I'm really kind of proud of that space.
Yeah.
I 100% can say I recommend therapy for all those who are in a space or a medium or an industry that calls your confidence into question a lot, like calls your tests your gangster a lot. Like
Absolutely.
100% recommend therapy because I think that it helps you navigate how to deal with rejection, how to deal with, getting that yes and not feeling like an imposter. Like I don't deserve to be wherever my next space is coming. So I think it's been really helpful for me. And, I really appreciate people who even want to have me on their shows or call me up for interviews. Like that'll never get old because everyone doesn't call. Like
Right.
it's not a guarantee that these opportunities happen. So I think that's important for me to like keep reminding myself as the doors and time I can make, I definitely will. So people like you that inspire me, I think when you just have a dream, when you have the talent, you just haven't had the right opportunity, keep going. Like I think keep going is probably the best phrase I could leave anybody with.
Yeah.
Is just like it's not going to be easy. Nobody sat up here and said, yeah, this is so James, you're gonna be straight, it's gonna happen, you're gonna take off, da, 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 da. But also like framing what success looks like, right? If you're not Stephen A. Smith, will you still find yourself a successful media guy, right? If you don't make the millions, if you're not on ESPN every day yelling at somebody, like, will you still find success in what you're doing? So I think that's been a big piece for me. Like I may never make ESPN. That doesn't mean I didn't have a successful career, right? So I think it's just finding success in however you do it.
That's a fact. And I like that you harped on therapy because
Yeah.
I've been in therapy over the last year. And I honestly think that's the only reason why I'm still here.
Yeah.
I honestly am, and I say that because I'm finally being able to accept the fact that no, you don't work for a large publication. Because I'm now working for the Triangle Tribune, but I'm like, it's okay. You're gonna get there. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I'm able to accept what is, and
Mm-hmm.
just work for what it will be.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I
That's
like
real.
I like to tell people all the time, like those who get it, and those
Yeah.
who don't, they'll fall in line. And that's a fact.
That's the
That's a
real
fact.
truth. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that, everyone thinks, again, talking about the big time people started at a Triangle Tribune. They started at certain pay. Like nobody just got to where they are. Very few, beyond nepotism or whatever. Like I think it's just a nature of the beast. It's a very tough beast. And I think you got to find what you love in it and stick with it. And also, if you don't want to do it forever, that's okay too. You didn't quit on your dream. You found something else. You found your niche and you rolled with it. I think it's all about perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Candace, can you let everybody know where they can listen to the Lockdown podcast and everything else that you have going on?
100% locked on ACC each and every day. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are trying to get to 1,000 subs. YouTube is just like a different beast because I hate showing my face, but here we are. Locked on Podcast Network has all the shows you can think of. I really appreciate David Locke and the rest of my guys who helped me talk about basketball and football throughout the year. So Locked on ACC is wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow me on Twitter if you want to, at Candace D. Cooper. And, I'm just vibing, just rolling, seeing where life takes me.
No doubt, no doubt. Make sure y'all get here to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Make sure you get to that. And I appreciate you for your time today, Candace. It's been real. I appreciate it.
100%. Thank you, James.
No doubt, no doubt. It's a wrap, y'all.